Thank you so much for clicking on the video, and remember to like and subscribe. Everything helps. Every little really does help.
Yeah, we got married 6 months after we met each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question that might be different now in hindsight, but at the time, did it feel different? I understand under the circumstances, which I didn't know before talking right now, that obviously it was for certain reasons, but did you know that you wanted to marry him? I'm asking if there's a feeling that you get.
For me, it was. I think the difference was that maybe if you're in the same country, it might feel different. But I remember thinking, like, for both of us, it was very incredibly painful for us to be so far away. And when we did get to meet up, it was just, we had such a great time and it just felt very full. And then as soon as I had to drop him off at the airport, it was heartbreaking. I don't know. I don't expect that to ever happen again. I think that was just such weird circumstances, and it's probably not realistic for other people to be looking for something like that. I don't know. It was just, and we were so young. So I think things are so different now. 10 years on, I would never expect that kind of feeling for another partner that I'd meet. But
I don't know, because I think it's meeting someone abroad. I really do. It kind of, you know how people go in Love Island and they say it feels like 1 day a week? I think that's what it feels like abroad.
Yeah.
I met somebody in Greece and it felt like I'd been with him for a year and it'd been like 3 weeks.
It's the magic, I think.
Yeah, and he was from London and I'm from Birmingham, and obviously it wasn't as long distance as yours, but we were like, yeah, this is so going to work. Like, no, it's not. You don't even, like, you were just in a whirlwind. So I think it could happen again, but only really if it's in a circumstance where it's like accelerated, I think.
Yeah. And how long were you married for?
We were married. We separated when we were at the 5.5 year mark, I believe. So, and then when we officially divorced, I think it was about 6 years we had been together. So
it still was a pretty solid relationship, obviously, wasn't it?
It was. And we definitely, we married. We thought we would eventually marry, but we just did it very early because we had to. So it wasn't like, oh, we're just doing this so Jess can get over here and then like we're going to do our own thing. We definitely felt that we were going to be together forever. But of course things change. But so it was a long marriage for people who got married in their 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. And you moved countries for this. So what were kind of expectations at the time from like family members? Were there whispers of Jess, no, you're too young?
Interestingly, my family are very like rational, but they were 100% behind this. There was like basically no questions. They had met my ex and they thought he was great. And they were just like, we'll support you and whatever that you want to do and what you guys need to do. And I think they were very behind the love story as well. And I think everyone was really behind the love story and just thinking, the people who had been involved in it were like, this is just amazing. And so no one said anything to my face about not doing that, which is so funny because if I heard a similar story now and a friend was going to be doing something, I'd be like, what? Or sometimes people tell me stories of like, we got engaged after a year and I'm like, that's so soon. I'm like, oh wait, I really cannot judge anyone.
Yeah, I like to think that there's no timelines to anything. So I think that's a nice way to look at it. And also it sounds like you don't look back at regret, which is the best thing, to look back at a relationship that has ended and not need to look at it with regret. I think that's really lovely. Going through divorce that young though, so that's before you're 30.
Yeah, so 29, I turned 30 when we were separated.
Wow, okay. How did you, at that time, that young, have the tools to deal with a divorce, if there are any? Did travelling get you through it?
So I don't know if I had, what tools did I have? It was really, honestly, it was a very, very difficult year. And so I had the support of obviously my family, who were over in the US. And then I had a group of friends and a few people especially that were like doing as much as they could to support me. But sometimes, like, especially in the beginning of something like that, there's just not much that people can do. So they were trying. And in the beginning, I was going to therapy like twice a week at that point. I already had an existing therapist. And so I was just I was going to her a lot, and then kind of went to like one a week and then every other week. I don't know. I mean, it was tough. I was really thankful for the friends that were in London that could help me and that were trying to just like invite me to things that they were doing, or just, trying to keep me entertained and would come with me to, I moved out of my flat that my ex and I had together, and I had to move into a house share with strangers. And that was so like, in the beginning, that was just so hard because I'd never done that before. And I'd lived with my partner for 6 years in my dream flat. So, I had friends that like came with me to the viewings and helped me move and, came to check on me. And I'm so grateful to those people, because if I didn't have that, especially not having my family here, I don't know how I would have gotten through it really.
Gosh, yeah, because they're not even around. Just going back on the house share, did you love it in the end? Because my best times are living within house shares. I've lived in London, Leeds and Manchester, so it's the best.
No,
not for you. Oh.
It was a transition. The first one was with 2 guys, and they were really nice, and one of them wasn't around very much, and he was the landlord, so that kind of was nice. And then one of them had a dog, and him and I actually got on quite well. But I was just really like missed having my own space and having my standards of cleanliness. That was really a struggle for me. So I moved out of that one after 6 months. And then one of my best friends, her and I paired up, and then we moved into a house with 2 other women who we had met through like mutual friends, which was also quite interesting. And also we did that just before COVID. So like the whole lockdown stuff, everyone was going through very different situations with that. So it was a lot of like personalities happening. And I ended up not even actually living in the house. I was staying with the guy I was dating at the time outside of London. And then that was the last house share that I did. And I did have some fun with it. And I think it was good that I wasn't living on my own during all these like really tough times. But I live on my own now, and I don't think I could go back.
I've done a house share before and I hated every second of it.
Yeah.
I
Really?
left early.
Gosh, I've met some of my best friends through living with them, and they were strangers to begin with.
No, it wasn't for me. But in your relationship, because you said your friends helped you and obviously keeping busy, but did you have a lot of friends that were mutual between both of you?
Yeah, I did. So that was a really difficult thing because obviously I moved to a foreign country, and my first group of people to want to become friends with was my ex's friends. And I did become very, very close with like the majority of them, and a couple of them became like some of my closest friends. And so for the first like few months of the separation, everything was fine, and everyone was like still trying to be as supportive as possible. And then at one point, basically I don't really want to go too much into the detail of what happened, but they just all cut me off. So it was like, that was really difficult for me at the time because it felt very unfair. It was from something that he had told them, and no one, like these people had been my closest friends, and no one even bothered to reach out and be like, what's your side of it or anything like that.
And you're in this country alone. At least it's the same language, so that helps. But yes. I mean, when you've got no one around you and you're having to reach out and potentially make new friends now, that's really hard. Yeah,
and I've seen that happen before, and it's almost like the goalpost moves when you're healing. It's like, right, in 6 months I'll be okay, and then something happens because you've got the same group of friends, and ultimately they can't keep being close with both of you. It's never going to work. And it's like the goalpost has moved to like, okay, I'm going through this now, and that makes it hard. But again, you come over from America, so
yeah,
that's the easiest way to make friends in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It
was there a moment where you were like, I'm going back to America?
Yeah,
I thought about it. Like, obviously as I was going through this whole process, I kind of was trying to figure out what are my next moves. And I didn't really want to go back because I'd lived most of my adult life in London, and I had that group of friends who eventually I didn't speak to anymore. But I also did have a really amazing group that were separate from my ex, who I had become really close with during that whole process. So I kind of thought about it, but then eventually, and also my business is so tied up in London, so I would really be starting over yet again.
Yeah.
So I just didn't really have any interest in doing that. And I was lucky that the visa I was on at the time, I was allowed to stay, even though we got divorced. So, it was, I got very lucky. And I think, losing that group was very painful for me because that happened just before lockdown started as well. So then I was living with my then boyfriend, but it was just so much time so much time to think, right? I think a lot of us we were dealing with that. So I was trying to process all this, and then also dealing with my business completely basically vanishing because no one was traveling to London. And it was just way too much time to think. But then once I processed all of it, I actually realized that it was for the best. And I came out on the other side. I have friends that I have much better like connections with, and that I have a lot more in common with, and that live nearby and have similar aspirations that I do, and like that really like pump me up instead of bringing me down and things like that. So it's actually was kind of a blessing that happened, because I wouldn't be in the position I am and have such amazing friends around me now.
I love your story for that, and how you can look back and be like, everything does happen for a reason. And what I love about you, Jess, is that you've made London yours now. Mm-hmm. So it isn't anyone else's. It's like, you can put that behind you. Hopefully that's a passing that happened. It was great whilst it lasted. It's done and dusted now, but London is now yours, with your amazing business and with your now like can-do attitude. I think that's great. You like the story?
It's easy for people to be like, obviously you're going to move back to America, but it's like, home isn't where you were born. Home is where your friends are. Home is where you feel like you're at home, and for some people it isn't where they're born. And so it's easy to be like, yeah, just move back. Look, no, obviously not. I've made my own life here, so
home can be where you make it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you stayed.
Yeah, me too. I am too.
I really hope you enjoyed that clip, and of course you can go back and enjoy the full episode. You can head to Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you go to get your podcasts, or of course you can watch on YouTube. I'll see you next time.